Good evening, and to the meeting of the Westfield, Washington Township Board of Zoning Appeals for Tuesday, April 12th, 2022. I'll call this meeting to order, and staff, can you note the presence of a quorum, please?
Ms. Fortier.
Here.
Mr. Morales.
Here.
Mr. Schmitz.
Here.
Mr. McCarty.
Here.
Mr. Buller.
Here.
Quorum.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is consideration of the minutes. We've all had the opportunity to review those. Does anyone have any questions, comments, anything that requires discussion or correction? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Victor, second by Janine to approve the minutes of March 8th, 2022. We can do voice votes now, right?
No.
Okay. So, motion and seconds on the table. All those in favor of approving the minutes indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. I forgot what to say. It's been so long. Yeah. Motion's approved. Next is reviewing the rules and procedures. So, Dane, are you doing that?
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. General procedures for all petitions. Tonight's meeting has the following structure. The department will summarize the petition and describe what action, if any, is necessary to be taken. The petitioner will be given up to 15 minutes to present to the board. The president will open a public hearing. Individuals will be given 3 minutes to speak. Those representing a group will be given 5 minutes to speak. Only one member of the group will be given. Ask those representing a group to speak first. Close when all interested members of the audience have had a chance to be heard and all emails received during the meeting have been provided to board members. The petitioner will then have a chance to respond to comments, and the board will follow with any comments, questions, or concerns regarding the petition. Please do not disrupt the proceedings in any way. If you need to have a private discussion, we ask that you please quietly exit the room. Please silence your devices at this time. If you must answer them, then please quietly exit the room. If you are attending in person and wish to speak in regard to a petition scheduled for a public hearing, please fill out a yellow card available up here. Once the public hearing is open, please provide us your yellow card. If you are not attending, comments regarding the plan, Westfield and .gov with the petition name or number included in the subject line, and those comments will be forwarded to board members and the petitioner. Get your name and address into the microphone for the record, and we ask that you not repeat previously stated comments. Your presentation will be timed, and you will be advised when there is approximately 30 seconds remaining. We would like to remind everyone to please speak directly into the microphone so your comments can be put onto the record. Thank you.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is 2202 VU 022907 West State Road 32. Ellen Hodgson is the petitioner seeking a variance of use to permit a temporary, very high-intensity retail used car sales on an AGSF parcel. And Dane, I believe you are the planner handling this.
Yes. Evening, members of the board. For the record, Dane Crabtree with the Community Development Department. The item before you this evening is a variance of use request for 2907 West State Road 32. The proposed variance of use would permit a very high-intensity use, specifically used vehicle sales, on a 1.5-acre AGSF1 zone property. The petitioner is proposing a 5-year time limit for the variance and a maximum of 40 cars on the property. The petitioner is not proposing to alter any existing building on the property. You may recall that a variance to permit a quadruplex was sought by the same petitioner, and said variance was granted for this property at the February 13th, 2020 BZA meeting. This item has been properly noticed and advertised. The department has received no public comments. The petitioner, Alan Hodgson, is present this evening. He would like to give a brief presentation, after which he will be available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. You'll state your name and address for the record, please.
Yep. And push the button down there. Yep, at the bottom, below that. Yeah.
Alan Hodgson. My current address is 11860 Salerno Court Drive in Carmel, Indiana 46032. Should I continue with the button?
Yeah, just keep going.
Okay. I inquired this property about 5 years ago. It was in pretty bad shape. I believe I sent you a little PDF. Do you have it?
I do not. This was.
I sent it to Caleb. Okay.
Yeah, Caleb. So anything he would have put up.
Yeah, he must not have it on file. But I sent it to him. Pretty much it was in bad shape. I did a lot of improvement on the property. Can you? I have done a lot of improvements on the property. 2 years ago, I came in here and I requested a variance to the property to have it rezoned from a single-family home to a quadplex, and it was approved by the board. But COVID happened, and the prices of everything just jumped dramatically. So right now, I don't have a house on the property. I only have a garage and a small shop. I'm not planning on adding anything to the property. Just leave it as is, and I'd like to make use of the property at this point to just a temporary use for the next 5 years for a used car sales lot, and that's what I'm here for. Just put the property, the land to use. I know the city was concerned about the future plan for it, and they said that could be okay with the city, as long as when I met with Dane and Caleb, they said probably that would be approved by the city for what I'm proposing here. Because that's the only reason why I'm doing. I cannot do the 4 unit because it's super expensive and doesn't really justify the cost. Especially, I don't have water and sewer to the property. Meanwhile, I'd like to make use of it as I propose.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If that's all, we'll open the public hearing on if there's anything that's brought up through that. I will call the public hearing to order at 7:07. Dane, roll cards, or Rachel?
We have no cards at present.
Okay.
Should I move?
Yeah, go sit down.
Okay, sorry about that. Chad Hughes, 17118 Little Eagle Creek Avenue in Westfield. And I do not believe that this location is appropriate for a standalone used car lot, including no customary site improvements, and let me explain. I have reviewed the site plan and would note the following. The plan is not to scale, therefore one can how much of the site is actually used. There's no required setbacks are shown. No pavement is shown. No accommodation for stormwater runoff is shown. No landscape buffers are shown as required for commercial uses next to agricultural and residential. And frankly, no landscaping at all is shown. What do the proposed buildings look like? With a property along State Road 32 just asked to be approved as a used car lot and follow no commercial setbacks, landscaping, parking, architectural standards. The report does not speak to State Road 32 standards applicable. Does the have the ability to get all those standards waived? A bunch of cars for sale on his property? These are questions to let the public know and answer to. I'm not aware that commercial access has been requested to State Road 32. Without state-approved access to use state, this is a safety issue. If approved for use, will the applicant have to meet all the underlying development standards, setbacks, parking, drainage, landscaping, etc.? Noted, or again, will be allowed to move cars onto a site and put a sale sign up on them. Support of a nicely done, well-landscaped, and signed car lot at this location. Please don't car lot by lowering our property values. Stretch of state is the front door, and we should uphold the aesthetic standards the community has set for this site and others. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, did you wish to speak? Pardon? Please approach and state your name and address for the public record, please.
My name is Wayne Timberman. I live in Carmel, 408 Shoemaker Drive, 46032. I represent tonight property owners, Cardinal, who owns ground surrounding this property to the west and to the south, and Bo Wolfong, who owns the north side of 32. I've not been for a temporary variance, so I've got questions that we'd like to see concerning this. See any reference to any kind of improvements and how those improvements may or may not be eligible for the TAC process. It doesn't mention any remodeling of the existing improvement, any signage. The curb cut on State Road 32 is in, but there's no conversation about the improvements to that. Are there any standards to be adjusted for used car? If so, are those standards? Are there environmental standards for a used car lot? Are there parking lot lighting standards or any requirements relative to lighting? Are there could be open for business? Are there standards or requirements relative to stormwater drainage? Are there standards for indoor or outdoor building remodel of the improvements? Is there any requirement relative to ground cover, such as gravel or pavement? We understand that this is an improved use, to overlay plan, your primary zoning plan. But we also understand there are good-looking car lots, and then there are car lots of lesser quality. And we wonder if there's going to be any influence by the city relative to that issue. So we have some questions about how the property is going to look after it's done. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we need to do something about that, Mike, or is there something we can do? Is Chris on the line?
I texted Chris Larson. My understanding is that they had issues at last night's council meeting, so
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. Best we can do, it sounds like. Does anyone else wish to speak on this? Has there been any additional electronic communication? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing at 7:14. Would you care to respond at all to any of the comments made by the speakers?
As I stated in the beginning, that this property used to have a single-family home on it, so the drainage was done on it, and it has a cut from 32 to access the property. As a matter of fact, it has two access to that property. One of them is gravel right now, I'm not using, it's only that one access to it. So before anything happened, there was an existing home that I tore down. So I'm not creating anything new on the property, I'm just leaving everything the same as far as the gentleman was concerned about. No, I'm not adding anything to it, and that was the deal between me and the city, that I'm not adding to it. I'm just gonna get a temporary variance for the next 3 to 5 years. So I just can put the land to use until the city continue with their improvement up to 32. That's why I'm not adding any buildings to it. I'm just keeping everything the same, and I think I have better pictures of it. You don't have the PDF file. It looks way better than it is on GPS, Google GPS. But yes, as manage, yes, the city is working. It goes by the length of the property. I think they go to garages. I think I'm allowed. I think it's 3 by 5 I'm not filling anything, I'm not adding any more gravel to the property, I'm just using the current existing lot that I have on the property. As previous owner, which was, I believe he was a farmer, he used to use it as, he used to sell corn and vegetables in the summer. So that's had, a bunch of, I'm not adding time ago, that's, I'm not adding this 30 to 40 cars in there, and yes, I will do landscaping to the property and improve it as far as the landscaping, but as far as building, I'm not adding any more buildings to it.
Okay, no more building. What was I going to ask about the, oh, you've mentioned a couple times in your application, you refer to city infrastructure getting out to you. How does that pertain to what you're doing or not doing right now about water and sewer getting there?
When I had the single-family home, I had just a septic tank.
Uh-huh.
But once it's tore down, and I inquired for 4 units, they say once you put a new building, you have to have a new system. So when I inquired about it, they say actually you need 2 systems because it's too many fixtures in the house. So that was extremely costly. I was like, well, okay, we're going to put that on hold. And my understanding, what is it, consumer energy, they say in the next 5 years, I have so much water to up to that.
Okay, so that's in order to construct something different, maybe the quad.
The quads, yes.
Gotcha.
I'm just asking like for variance for the next 5 years, just to put the land. Now, I cannot really build on it because the land cost expensive. That's what I'm looking for a variance for the next 5 years. It's temporary, permanent. And I believe I'm not the only one in the city who has, I think, multiple people, 32 downtown Westfield have that same thing, and that's what I'm copying, quite honestly.
The staff has put some recommended conditions to the variance. Have you had the opportunity to review those?
Yes. Compliant, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, good enough.
Any of you guys imply on it? I mean, really, I'd like to just, at this point, if you want to restrict it to anything else, less cars or more landscaping, and the gentleman here asked about the lighting. Of course, you cannot have a used car lot without the lighting. This is quite a requirement to have a used car lot. You have ample lighting, and you have to have entrances, and you have to have fence. That will be erected.
Any questions for the petitioner while he's at the podium?
Do you have established operation hours?
I think it's going to be at least minimum 30 hours, and that's by law. I believe that's a state law. You have to have an open from.
So what would be your earliest open time and your latest close time?
9 to 5. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is this something that you're going to operate on your own, or are you going to actually lease this to another company to do the sales? I mean, have you done sales like this, auto sales like this?
No, actually, I have someone that a friend of mine that he has, he's on the south side, and he's going to be my partner. He's going to be owning everything, but he's my partner to help me out with this. Most likely, like mostly, 80% of the work, 20 pretty much.
I'd like the staff to elaborate on it, or I'd like you guys to address. First off, that or condition for purposes of the UDO, outside storage standards do not apply to the proposed use of this variance. What's the reason for that?
I mean, typical outside storage standards, the cars would probably technically be considered outside storage, and obviously it would be atypical for a car lot to store their vehicles in an interior enclosed building. So if we wanted to further that condition to state that the outside storage standards would only not be applicable to the vehicles themselves, if that makes more sense, then we can certainly amend that condition.
Okay. The other question, I mean, we're focused purely on the use. What, if the variance was granted, I guess that's a threshold requirement. He's got to have, petitioner needs that variance to have the use being permitted. what other approval processes are necessary? The speakers brought up issues of compliance with commercial standards that we would normally see with a commercial development. Are any of those picked up through that process? Does he have to go to APC for anything?
No, this would, no, this would literally be, if there is no addition, new buildings, no new impervious surface or anything like that, it would literally be bringing cars to the lot and everything as is, then this would not require any plan commission approval or anything like that. It would literally be as the property sits with vehicles on it for sale.
Okay.
It would not, no development plan threshold would be crossed by simply adding cars to the site.
So he's basically ready to go, depending on, whatever conditions, if a variance is granted, then the only limitations are whatever conditions we place on that approval.
Correct.
Okay. That, I don't have a lot of comfort in that, given the breadth of, how many standards and how many issues there are in a commercial development. That, on the one hand, I'm very sympathetic to the desire to have the property being used productively, and you're kind of in a jam because of the situation with water and sewer. I get that. On the other hand, what's being requested is a fairly complex, can be a pretty complex circumstance, development, and if we don't handle it correctly, then for a period of 5 years, you or a subsequent owner could do something that perhaps we don't anticipate, and we don't have the scope defined narrowly enough to protect the surrounding property owners and others' interests. Anyone else wish to speak on?
And I'll just add to that I agree that I'm uncomfortable with the use and going through this process. Again, I'm very sympathetic to the use because you've been put in a very difficult position with it. But I think just one with the location, I don't see it right being for a used car lot, because I kind of compare it for years and years. Just down the way on Eagletown Road in 32, there was a used car lot that now it looks horrible, and it did even when it was being used as a used car lot. So that's really the best thing I can compare it to on that side of town, and it's just the location is wrong for me with this. So
I wish they have the PDF that I sent in an email. I wish you've seen what the property looked like before I inquired it and after. 3 years after the fact. I improved a lot to the property. I'm not going to really put any kind of used car and it'd be like a big junkyard. No, I'm going to operate in a reputable business.
no, yeah, and I appreciate that. Yeah, and driven by the many times over the past several years. Even I drove by it on Saturday. I've seen the work that you've put into it, but it's just again with the location and as they spoke. Their concerns regarding it just with this going through this type of process, it just doesn't sit right with me. So that's just where my mindset is. But again, I'm very sympathetic towards your predicament that you're in.
I know you guys are concerned with the look and the process. Like I said and mentioned that today and then Caleb before, is like if the city wants to put any kind of restriction on what I'm going through, I'm going to go ahead with the improvement. I'm willing to go ahead and put it in writing, and even in the future, like 6 months down the road, if you guys are not happy with something, I'm willing to comply and put that in the variance as well.
So as to that, we're going to want to have all that stuff ironed out before any kind of a variance is granted.
I guess to that end, President, I think a little back, when we met with Alan, we didn't, at the same time, we didn't feel comfortable requiring all the standards that would otherwise be permitted or required by a full development plan review, as it is only going to be a temporary use. So there may be some things that are required under the current development plan review, like full landscaping and things like that, that may not be appropriate for a temporary use. So it was kind of our idea is to bring it here, see what the concerns were, and if necessary, we probably could go back. If you were wanting to do a continuance for this, go back, meet again, gather all those thoughts, make revisions to the site plan per the concerns, and then come back.
Yeah, at least from my perspective, I understand the cost and the time involved in doing that. By the same token, absent that level of detail, I don't think we're doing justice to people's and concerns. Anyone? But then again, I mean, it's kind of a threshold question. If the board feels like that the use itself for using it for a used car business is not appropriate in that location, then we're wasting the petitioner's time for him to go back and refine his used car business and maybe make it more amenable to us. So I don't.
I mean, that's where at least I would fall of being appropriate use in terms of used car lot. Previously it was used for selling corn and other vegetables, and I think that was a good location, given this proximity between Jolietteville and Westfield. But just me, I can't see a used car lot out that far.
I feel the same way. I know that there is a single-family home right there, and to me, I just think that is probably not the most appropriate use. But if you had come landscape plans and some other more details, probably get behind it. Not the way that it's presented. I don't think that that's something that I could support.
Do you and others up here want to, we can consider tabling this or continuing this matter and give the instruction, encouragement to the petitioner to give some more refinement to his plans, work with staff to make something similar to a detailed development plan, perhaps not engineer prepared, but meet some of the standards that he would meet, as many as possible, and illustrate that in a manner that would be enforceable in any variance, or not? Do we not want to encourage that?
I know I would feel more comfortable if I did have more details of how it would look. It has not looked very appealing before you owned it, for sure.
Definitely looks better.
But if I was that neighbor next door to you and you put up a bunch of lights out there that are going to be all night long for security of your cars, I would not be happy with that.
As a matter of fact, he was actually gonna want to come and partner with me. He's actually on board with that as well.
Okay.
The neighbor
Okay.
next door. And if you
Well,
want me to
see,
get
that
you.
helps. That's
if-
more
yes,
information
yeah,
than
if
what
you
we
want me-
had.
Actually, both
So-
neighbors are okay with it. The neighbor next door, he inquired the property about 6 months ago, and Mr. Zia owned the property for the past 5 years with that.
Okay,
That would, an element of what we come back would be evidence of support from anyone who's affected by it.
And yeah, his son is a mechanic, and he's helping us. I'm not gonna do any repairs, but,
Certainly some letters from, or statements from them that would be.
have a verbal, yeah, but I'll definitely get something in a more of a letter. An
Do we-
email.
Brian, do you want to chime in at all on anything, or?
I agree with everyone up here. You gotta make it a little bit more sweeter, I guess.
Yeah, I think,
That's nice.
the original meeting was, kind of like, if we're not adding anything, we're keeping everything the same, we don't have to come up with any development plan. So, yes, we definitely have to work, me and Dane maybe, we'll have to come back and work on this.
And I get the desire to keep it simple, and it's just, sometimes if we don't have enough guidance and enough detail in what we approve, then we end up with something different. And maybe it's not because maybe because this variance would go with the land. So if you sold the land tomorrow, then that subsequent owner who never participated in this process would have that same guidance. So to the extent we don't give sufficient detail, then we run into problems when the property changes hands. So that's where all of us are a little bit uncomfortable with it presently.
Sure,
I guess what I would suggest is I will make a motion to do we continue or table? What do you prefer? Does it matter?
Generally, when you continue, it's to the next meeting. When you table it, it's indefinite. So if he wants to come back at the next meeting, or if he'd want to come back 2 or 3 months from now, it would be up to him to return.
Okay, well, I'm going to make a motion to table to give you sufficient time to, so it doesn't matter so much whether it's next month or the month after. Work with staff to iron out whatever detail you can to present your project in the best light it can and in a way that is going to satisfy some of the concerns of the neighbors. And to the extent you can discuss these things with them in advance, that would be helpful as well. And if you have neighbors in support, you can provide evidence of that at a subsequent meeting. So I'll make that motion to table 2202VU02 to a future meeting.
I'll second.
Motion by myself, seconded by Victor, to table 2202VU02. And staff, can you call the roll?
Mr. Morales?
Yes.
Mr. Buller?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Ms. Fortier?
Yes.
Motion has been tabled.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, 2203VS10, 1111 East 156th Street. Mike Booland seeking a variance of development standard to permit a second dwelling unit on the property in a GSF1 district, and that is Dane as well.
Board, I don't think it really matters at this point. It's just for the record, Dane Crabtree with the Community Development Department. The item before you this evening is a variance of development standard request to permit a second dwelling unit at 1111 East 156th Street, a 9.64 acre AGSF1 zone property. The second dwelling unit is proposed to exist after an interior remodel of an existing structure is done on the property. No new structures are proposed for the property with this specific request. This item has been properly noticed and advertised, and the department has received no comments. Mike Bluland is present this evening. He does not plan to make a presentation, but is available for questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you. In the absence of a presentation from the petitioner, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing at 7:33. Any cards or communication at this stage?
No cards.
All right, John Roeder, 15505 Vader Court. I live in the property just to the west. So my back porch is about 30 feet from the dwelling. And really, I have no real issues for rental purposes, or just for the family. That was really the only question that I had.
We won't have the answer to that, but the petitioner will have the opportunity to respond.
Okay.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak on this petition?
After the public hearing. Any cards?
Communication?
No electronic communication.
I'll go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:35. Petitioner is here somewhere. If you'll come on up and state your name and address for the public record, please.
Sure. Mike Graves family, which is at 111 East 156th Street, Carmel, Indiana. This is an existing structure that's been there for over 20 years. It was originally designed, it's a 20-car garage. The second floor was originally designed for an apartment, and it was just not built out. And now Robert's son and his fiance are at the age where they're living in Robert's house currently and would like a little more privacy. That's why we're building it out. So I think that answers that gentleman's question. Family use, yeah.
And it's intended to be, it's not, the ground will not be subdivided and this building sold off. Is there anything in what the selling off and subdividing, there's clear issues to them doing that?
there's already a lack of road frontage, so there would need to be a variance at minimum if they were to set to get, if there is one on the property already. This went through some hills, included in F1. They were due for a variance for lack of road frontage at minimum on the property.
And for this owner or a subsequent owner, there's nothing that would stop renting.
No, we have no provisions zoning-wise that would prevent that.
Let's see, do we have?
And I guess nor would there would just be no
Yeah.
way.
Exactly. We didn't have any conditions recommended on this, did we?
Yeah, one condition.
Oh, the usual recording, okay. Anyone else from the board, any?
Say in this housing market, I think it's a good idea.
So the frame, the structure itself is already there,
The garage is there, yes,
so, okay,
yes. And it's been used for 20 years.
okay.
And there's a staircase on the exterior, there's a staircase on the interior. So the original design and framing was to accommodate an apartment there.
So your work is all internal?
Correct.
Okay.
I guess clarification for that, since it's been a garage and you're mentioning the apartment use has already been established, possibly established for the top portion, is what we're looking at rendering wise, is that just for the top of the
That's
garage?
correct.
Okay,
That's correct.
thank you.
Any other questions for petitioner? Don, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve 2203 VS 10, 1111 East 156th Street. And there is one condition that the petitioner records an acknowledgement of variance with the Hamilton County Recorder's Office and returns a copy of the recorded instrument to the Community Development Department.
Second.
Motion by Janine, second by Victor to approve 2203 VS 10, subject to the recommended conditions from staff. Dan, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Buller,
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz,
Yes.
Mr. McCarty,
Yes.
Ms. Fortier,
Yes.
Mr. Morales.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, and I'll make a motion to adopt staff's findings of fact for the approval of this petition.
Second.
Motion by myself, seconded by Ms. Fortier to adopt staff's findings of fact for the approval of 2203 VS 10. Can you call the roll, please, Dane?
Mr. Buller,
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz,
Yes.
Mr. McCarty,
Yes.
Ms. Fortier,
Yes.
Mr. Morales.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. You're approved, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Next item on the agenda is 2204 VS 11, 15612 Count Viking Court. Philip Ennis seeking, what's that? Did I miss one?
This is the one where the numbers
Oh, that's right. We're going, I think we have to go count by.
So we want to do,
Because they're swapped, right?
well, on the agenda, it's got Eagletown Road first, so is that one you want to hear?
So, yeah, let's do Count Viking Court first, because that's the actual docket.
Okay.
Just for clarification for anyone that's looking at the agenda and cares, the agenda has the docket numbers incorrect. So the Count Viking Court item is 220 VS 11, and that's what we will consider now. And the petitioner is seeking a variance of development standard to encroach 15 feet 9 inches into the 25-foot minimum rear yard setback in the Viking Meadows PUD. Wes Rogers is the planner on this one.
Yes. Thank you, President, members of the board. For the record, Weston Rogers with the Community Development Department. property is located at 15612 Count Viking Court within the Viking Meadows PUD district. The petitioner requests a variance of development standard to encroach 15 feet 9 inches into the 25-foot rear yard setback. This item does require a public hearing tonight and has been properly noticed and advertised. Staff has received no public comments. The petitioner is here tonight and plans to make a brief presentation. Both he and I are available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Phil Ennis, 2168 South Jacoby Road, Greenfield, Indiana, representing the Adalacas. We've been working with them for a couple of years. They used to own a property in Bridgewater and sold it in 2020 and bought this property, not fully understanding the setbacks and the actual property lines. And asked us to design them their dream backyard, which we did. We've had several comments from neighbors in support and admiration of this project. As it's stated on the aerial drainage plan and everything else drains into the pond. We're not increasing any drainage. The house was built over the setback line. The existing porch, if you look at the site plan that I provided, does show the 25-foot setback line runs through those two columns on the far left porch, and then the two columns on the center porch, if you zoom in on that. So we'd like to bring this up to standard anyways, because the house was already constructed over that when we had a survey done. It is out of the standard already. And, you know, it's a private easement back there, and the homeowner actually owns all 3 lots in that part of the subdivision. There was agreement with the developer originally that said as long as there was no complaints from neighbors and approval from neighbors that they did not have to have HOA architectural permission to do anything of such. And as far as I'm aware, we've had none of the neighboring properties. I spoke with Mr. Hart, who I believe owns the property just to the left there. Yeah. And we talked, and I sent him all the renderings and everything else, and he said if they want to spend $1 million in their backyard, by all means, let them spend $1 million in their backyard. So, like I said, I think we have the support. I think it's a major improvement. It not negatively affect the whatsoever, and allows these homeowners to have a cliff. So, any questions for me?
Any question, or anyone? Let's get back to you if there's any more. I'll open the public hearing on this matter at 7:44. Any cards?
No cards.
Thank you. We'll give it a minute or so. No electronic communication, I assume, as well, so I'll give it another minute or so. Nothing, I presume?
I don't know that whether this has anything to do with this petition or not, but we did just receive a comment that said, did the neighbors receive formal notice, certified mail ?
We no longer require certified mail, do we?
No. It only requires
Just regular mail notice.
first class mailing with certificate of mailing, not actual certified.
Nothing else? As far as public comment?
No, nothing else.
Okay. I'll close the public hearing at 7:45. Phil, if you'll just comment on the public record, if you'll come on back up. And as a part of this petition, I presume you complied with our notice requirements, or just state that you did, or whatever you did to.
Yeah, we complied with all the requirements provided by Weston to send everything out, mailing, notice, everything else.
Okay, thank you. In addition, while you're at the podium, the staff has recommended a couple of conditions. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to look at those, but one is that the property be developed in substantial compliance with the site plan. So the significance of that is if anything changes in the plan, then it wouldn't necessarily work for this approval. So work with staff if any changes are made.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
no problem.
So you're aware of that. Anything else, anyone?
I'll just say that you mentioned this is their dream pool. This is my dream pool as well.
I think it's all of ours.
This is the best one I've ever seen, like, literally.
Is that a CG, computer-generated house, or is that a photo?
Yeah, that's all computer generated. This is actually not the best that we do, but the file
Not the
size
best
on this
that you
was
do.
so large. Follow me on Instagram, you can find some more.
Software.
Gosh.
But
yeah.
the file was so large on this house that we couldn't get the computer to spit out more. Usually our water looks more real than that.
Looks pretty
Don't hold that against me. But yeah, I mean, it's not every day you get the opportunity to do something like this. And, you know, we did the 2019 monthly dream home in Zionsville. We're doing Homerama in Chatham with you guys. And, you know, we're really excited to put this one in if we get approval.
Yeah,
You know.
this is amazing.
I'll entertain a motion on this petition.
I'll make a motion to approve 2204 VS-11, 15612 Count Viking Court, with the following recommended conditions: that the property shall be developed in substantial compliance with the site plan shown as Exhibit 3, and that the petitioner shall record an acknowledgement of this approval with the county recorder's office and return a copy of the recorded instrument to the Economic and Community Development Department.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, seconded by Victor, to approve 2204 VS-11, subject to the two stated staff conditions. Staff, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Schmitz,
Yes.
Mr. McCarty,
Yes.
Ms. Fortier,
Yes.
Mr. Morales,
Yes.
Mr. Buller.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, and I'll make a motion to adopt staff's findings of fact for the approval of this petition.
I'll second.
Motion by myself, seconded by Ms. Fortier, to adopt staff's findings of fact for the approval of 2204 VS-11. Dane, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Schmitz,
Yes.
Mr. McCarty,
Yes.
Ms. Fortier,
Yes.
Mr. Morales,
Yes.
Mr. Buller.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Phil.
It's going to be nice.
Next item on the agenda, 2204 VS-12, 18103 Eagletown Road, Jonathan Brown, seeking a variance to development standard to reduce the front yard setback from 83 to 77 feet in an AGSF1 district. And that is Rachel.
Thank you. For the record, Rachel Remenschneider with the Community Development Department. The project before you this evening requests to encroach 3 feet into an 80-foot required front yard setback for the purposes of constructing a front porch. The home is located at 18103 Eagletown Road. It is the pastor's parsonage for the Eagle Creek Friends Church. The property is 1 acre and is legal nonconforming. The property and all adjacent properties are zoned AGSF1. This item is before you this evening for a public hearing. It has been properly noticed and advertised. Staff has received no public comments. The petitioner is here this evening. They do not plan to make a presentation, but are available for questions.
Thank you. So a presentation by the petitioner. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing at 7:50. Any cards? You mentioned no communication yet. So this is church-owned, correct?
Correct.
But the church is not the petitioner, or are they the owner on the application, right?
So the pastor is in the process of purchasing the property, is my understanding. And we have permission from the church for them to.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And essentially what we're, the issue, they're building a porch, correct, that goes 6 feet over on a huge setback to begin with. Okay.
Just Mary Reynolds, and just to update you on this, my husband's family donated this ground to the Eagletown Church as an acre in 1953 for them to build a parsonage. It's been a parsonage ever since. We have since built a new church beside it. It has been empty now for 4 years. It doesn't seem like ministers need homes. They'd rather stay in something that they have. And we have had the opportunity and have sold it. And if you've been out there and seen it, the people that have bought it have just done marvelous in redoing it and making it look real wonderful. At the time that this was given in 53, your land went to the center of the road. And the house was built with that. So then this has caught us being too close, but it's still farther back than most houses are. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. Any additional communication? We'll go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:52. Pretty minor. Scope of the request is pretty minor in light of the big setback that this property has, and still has quite a bit of land behind it. So pretty straightforward deal. Anybody have anything for staff or otherwise?
I'll just say, and I haven't said this in a few meetings, but I have lived in this area my entire life. And the church is actually right behind the house that we built in 2018. And it's correct. Done a great job improving. I think this is a fair variance.
I'll entertain a motion while you're talking.
Okay. I will make a motion for approval of 2204 VS-12, 18103 Eagletown Road, with the following recommended conditions for approval: that 1, the porch will be constructed in substantial compliance with the site plan, see Exhibit 3, and number 2, that the petitioner shall record an acknowledgement of this approval with the Hamilton County Recorder's Office and return a copy of the recorded instrument to the Community Development Department.
I'll second that.
Motion by Victor, seconded by Mr. Buller, to approve 2204 VS-12, subject to stated staff conditions. Dane, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Ms. Fortier?
Yes.
Mr. Morales?
Yes.
Mr. Buller?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And I'll make a motion to adopt staff's findings of fact for the approval of 2204 VS-12.
I'll second.
Motion by myself, seconded Ms. Fortier, to adopt staff's findings of fact for the approval of 2204 VS-12. Dane, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Ms. Fortier?
Yes.
Mr. Morales?
Yes.
Mr. Buller?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Matters approved. Next item On the agenda, 2204 VU 04 211 Jersey Street. Eric Angelotti seeking a variance of use to permit a retail low-intensity use drugstore on 0.24 acres in a multifamily 1 district. And that is Dane.
Evening, members of the board. For the record, Dane Crabtree with the Community Development Department. The item before you this evening is a request for 2.1 parcel zone in 1 multifamily low density variance, low intensity retail use specific top property. Petitioner Eric Angelotti, owner of the currently operating Ella Pharmacy located at 103 South Union Street, will be forced to move with the forthcoming Old Town development. If the board is inclined, a condition that the variance expire on December 31st, 2025 has been included. As presented as a public comment to you this evening, the Grand Junction Task Group has sent a letter in support of the variance. The department received no other public comments. Eric Angelotti is present this evening. He does not plan to make a presentation, but is available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. In the absence of a presentation by the petitioner, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing at 7:56. Any cards, comments? I see one approaching.
Good evening, Mr. President, board, staff. My name is Melody Jones. I reside at 211 Mill Street in Westfield, right around the corner. Actually, my Amazon packages get delivered to 211, so I'll work out something with them. I have lived on Mill Street since 1984. I've served on this board, I've served on the commission, I've served on the city council. I've been a big part of the redevelopment of downtown when I was the parks director for 10 years for the city of Westfield. On the plan commission, when we redid the comprehensive plan way back when, as the vision has changed for downtown tremendously over all these years, I am here to show my support for this variance. I think it's wonderful. The businesses that are getting displaced with a 32 project are still remaining and staying in our downtown. Our downtown needs to be walkable. We need to have these outlets for people that want to still be able to shop and get around. I wish more of the businesses were staying in downtown. And I think this is a really good use. It's going to be low intensity. It's going to provide that service. It is definitely not an injury to our neighborhood. There are still residents that live across the street. I live there. There's others on Mill Street that actually use the pharmacy. So I am here to speak in favor of it and hope you agree to grant their. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak on this petition? We had any additional communication?
No.
Okay, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:58. I wanted to ask staff, the staff report notes all the various properties where we've done what was referred to, they were referred to as transitional businesses, the ones in the area that we similar variances for. Did we put time constraints on each of those, or at least all that you can remember? We've commonly done that.
Correct. Correct. Until the city creates a more master zoning district for the downtown area to include all of these uses that we do expect to become compliant uses downtown. Once that is accomplished, we have put timers on this just in the event because it is still an area under transition. We have done it typically 3-ish years. Yes.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, the petitioner is here. Could you step up for a second just for a few questions? Just state your name and address for the public record initially.
Eric Angelotti, 20505 Fremont Moore Road, Sheridan.
Great, thank you. The staff report offers a few recommended conditions. Did you have the opportunity to see those to make sure you're okay with those?
I have not actually seen them. I've been rather busy.
Yeah, the recommended conditions are, number one, the approval of retail low-intensity use should be limited to a drugstore. Number 2, approval of additional on-site parking shall be reviewed and approved by the Westfield Public Works Department. And number 3, the approval of this variance shall expire 31/2025. Any request to extend the time reviewed and approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals prior to December 31, 2025. And that's it, those 3. So those are, you're agreeable to those conditions if the.
Yes.
Okay. And just to add to your business, I mean, I'm familiar with going in, convenience shopping element, you have alcohol sales, and then you have the prescription function. What percentage of the people who are coming in and out is prescription versus?
98%.
Okay. I suspected it would be a high number. Okay. Although when you get more residential down there, that may change a little bit. Any other questions?
Do you still plan to do alcohol sales?
Currently, yes, through our pharmacy license. It's actually a requirement I need to have for my compounding.
And that's something.
Yeah.
It's pretty sweet.
Right, I mean, that's all right.
I was just going to say that I think it's a great use for it, and I'm appreciative that you're keeping your business here in Westfield after being you will be displaced. So thank you.
Yes, that's the goal. I'm a little young and wasn't expecting this so soon, the move, so.
Yeah, having an independent business like yours that stays in town is really neat, so I think we're in favor. Any questions for the petitioner or anything further? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve 2204-VU-0421 Jersey Street with the following recommended conditions for approval. 1, that the approval of a retail low-intensity use be limited to a drugstore. 2, approval of additional on-site parking shall be reviewed and approved by the Westfield Public Works Department. And 3, that approval of this variance shall expire on December 31st, 2025. Any request to extend the time limit of this variance shall be reviewed and approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals prior to December 31st, 2025.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Brian to approve 2204B04 subject to 3 stated staff conditions. Dan, can you call the roll, please?
Ms. Fortier?
Yes.
Mr. Morales?
Yes.
Mr. Bowler?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, and I'll make a motion to adopt staff's findings of fact for the approval of 2204BU04.
Second.
Motion by myself, seconded by Janine to approve, or to adopt staff's findings for the approval of 04. Dan, can you call the roll, please?
Ms. Fortier?
Yes.
Morales?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz? Yes. McCarty?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next item on the agenda is 2 petitions, 204BU07, 204B13, 17502 Road, T.W. Crowley and Associates, seeking first variance of use to permit a high-intensity retail use. 2, of standards to permit building offsets to be reduced from 4 feet to 2 feet in a local and neighborhood business district. And Ryan Collins.
Thank you, President, members of the board. For the record, Ryan Collingwood with the Community Development Department. The project before you tonight is requesting a variance of use to permit a high-intensity retail use for a pet-oriented business. This request also includes a variance development standard to permit offsets to be reduced from 4 feet to 2 feet on the property located at 17502 Perry Road, sitting at about 1.3 acres. The property is zoned for the local business district and all adjacent properties local business district. This item is before you tonight for a public hearing and has been properly noticed and advertised. Staff has received no public comments. Jim Schinover of Nelson is here tonight and will provide a brief presentation about the details of the project. He is available for questions, as am I, should you have any for staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim?
Thank you and good evening. For the record, Jim Schinover, an attorney with the law firm of Nelson and Frankenberger, with office address of 550 Congressional Boulevard, Suite 210, Carmel 46032. With me tonight on behalf of the petitioner, TM Crowley & Associates, is Brian Mole. TM Crowley & Associates is working with Pet Suites to bring a new facility to the community. So while the last matter was trying to retain a business within the city, this petition regards trying to bring a new business to the city. With that said, as Ryan described, we're seeking a use variance request and one developmental standards variance request. We have also filed, TM Crowley has already filed a detailed development plan application that's being reviewed by staff and has gone through TAC. So some of the exhibits I'm going to show you tonight show a lot of detail because we're in a position to do that, and it might help as we explain the variance requests that are before you. With that said, this is the aerial photograph which shows the location of the real estate. As Ryan described, it's about 1.3 acres in size. To the north is State Road 32, and then over along our east perimeter is Cary Road. I know you're all very familiar with this site. This is a heavily traveled retail commercial corridor along State Road 32 and Cary Road, and we believe that this business would be a very good location. As a side note, this site has actually been vacant and undeveloped since about 2007, so it's remained in its current condition for about 15 years as one of the remaining puzzle pieces in this area. So with that said, as Ryan also indicated, because of the underlying zoning, the LB local business, the first variance request is a use variance. We're seeking to permit this pet-related business that has a kennel component so that animals can be boarded. Pet Suites is a higher-end type of provider in this arena. And so in addition to the pet boarding, they also do dog spas, so your pet can get some extra care, and also dog training. So that is the first aspect of the request, is the use variance. The second is the development standards variance pertaining to the offsets along the architecture. With that said, I want to just show you some of the images that I've described. The second aerial simply is the same aerial photograph that we've dropped in the site plan. And then the next photograph is a zoom-up view of the proposed site plan in relation to what is immediately surrounding us. A couple items of note. Access to the property will be through the current curb cuts that already exist along Cary Road. Front entrance, front door of the facility is facing north toward State Road 32. Parking for customers along the north and the east. And then the area along the west and a little bit along the south are some outdoor areas for animals. If you've ever been to a Pet Suites, they have a very well-maintained outdoor facility to give the dogs the opportunity to go out in the environment and get a little exercise. Dogs are never kept overnight at all, but this facility, this layout will provide the types of activities that are needed for their clients and the pet guests. There is a aluminum chain link security, but outside of that, as you'll see in the elevations, is a very nicely done masonry brick wall that also wraps around the property that provides additional screening and buffering in addition to the landscaping, which will all meet the UDO requirements. Next exhibit, as I referred to, landscape plan. Again, you can see we're complying with the UDO requirements. This is an engineered scaled landscape plan depicting the locations and types of plantings. Moving on to some of the building images, again, we filed for detailed development plan approval. So this is a perspective rendering looking to the, I believe, the southwest. So this would be facing to the north with the main entry for for guests to enter. And then we have the traditional building elevations that show all four building elevations, quality building materials. We work closely with staff to make sure those are compliant with building materials and design. And you can then also see portions of the fence areas that I had talked about. With that said, it gets us to the meat and potatoes of our request, which are the variances. Again, the use variance that we are seeking to permit this type of use in this zoning district. In this regard, we did submit detailed findings of fact for both variances, so I won't read those verbatim. But in summary, as previously noted, the real estate is surrounded by other retail and commercial uses. It is not directly adjacent to any residential uses or residential zone districts. And so based on its location, the activity on the adjacent roadways, and the building design, we think that there are valid justifications in seeking this variance from this body. And then the second variance, again, is the offsets on the building design. Basically, we're seeking relief. Instead of doing a 4-foot offset based on a certain number of distance, our preference is to do a 2-foot offset. What we've done to try to mitigate that is if you look at the building elevations, there's a lot of other architectural detail, both in materials and planes. Oftentimes, some of those offsets that are required are to create that building diversity, that appealing look, but we think we're able to accomplish it with the building design that we've presented to you. With that said, we have reviewed the suggested conditions of approval set forth in your staff report, and the applicant is agreeable to those. We do appreciate your time tonight, and of course, we'll remain available to answer any questions that you may have of us. Thank you.
And open the public hearing at 8:12. Any cards, Rachel?
No cards, no emails.
Okay. Give it a minute or so. I should have, before you sat down, Jim, I wanted to ask, is that the fencing, is that in the, what material is that? Is that the same? I see it here, but it's really small. Is that a masonry product?
Yes, it is. The exterior fence material that I described is the same type of brick masonry color palette that exists on the primary building. So it will have kind of a seamless appearance and be very consistent.
Right. Nothing, no additional communication's been received, so I'll close public hearing at 8:14. And for the public hearing, I meant to say it before, hoping to close the public hearing, but the public hearing would pertain to both petitions, but we need to treat them independently for voting purposes. And I guess discussion as well. Let's focus on the use issue first. Any comments, questions, anything related to that question?
I have one question. Did you say that the kennel was not overnight?
The outdoor facilities, I'm sorry, these outdoor facilities that are used are not used at night for the pets, but there is overnight boarding of pets because that's very customary with a pet suites type of program.
Thank you for that clarification.
Also, do you have, like, are there time limits? Because there is a neighborhood just to the south. Do you have, like, time limits in which the dogs, I think it's just dogs, well, the pets will be brought inside?
Yes, that's correct. Just for the record, thank you. I appreciate being here tonight. My name is Brian Mall, TM Crowley Associates, address 2548 North Park Avenue, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46205. Yes, to answer your question, the way that the outdoor play areas are laid out, you can kind of see we have large, medium, and small areas for the animals, and it is strictly dogs. We do have cat boarding and cat grooming, but they're not allowed to play with the dogs outside for good reason. They typically do have limits, about 25 to 30 minutes outdoors at a time. They do have monitors out there with them at all times. And if we have a couple of animals that are acting up a bit, they are brought inside immediately, so there's no prolonged barking. So you're not leaving the animals unattended. You're not letting them just out there just wailing away. We understand there are residents to the south that are not necessarily, within two properties adjacent, but certainly could hear some animals as that project. One of the other reasons we've elected for a masonry wall in this case rather than our typical exterior fence is a 7-foot vinyl. This will be an 8-foot masonry. One, it does two things. One, it provides a better shielding for the property and for the outdoor play area. It also cuts down on noise and sound attenuation as it comes out versus the vinyl. So we feel like it has a double effect on making this property more appealing to the neighborhood.
I agree.
I appreciate the clarification of if there was overnight boarding or not, because when I first heard no night boarding, I was like, oh, what? So no, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
With as heavily as involved as I am with some of the events we have here in Westfield, we just had Eggapalooza this past Saturday, Easter egg hunt for dogs, and we have Barktoberfest every fall as well, and I know how much there is a need for this type of use.
Yeah.
Coin Vet is where my dog goes, and they were there on Saturday, and I was talking to them. They had to turn people away during spring break just because of how much there is a need for it. And I was looking back at my previous notes of agendas, and we previously here approved Houndstown, USA. So I very much so appreciate them and you coming into our community because, before we had to drive all the way down to 86th Street to just have some sort of boarding option. So I very much appreciate you.
Yep. Well, we're happy to be here, and frankly, we're a national developer for pet suites, so we've got projects from Florida all the way to Phoenix. And for us, being a local business in the Carmel area and being in business here for 30 years, plus or minus, it's exciting to have one of these in our backyard so we can actually participate in building the community. So thank you.
Can you tell me how many animals max you will have in at a time?
Yeah, typically we're running between 30 and 40 animals that are being boarded on a regular basis. We have enough space for around 90. Plus or minus, but rarely are we at that level of capacity. And we've got varying levels of indoor kennels, obviously based on the size of the animal as well. We've got some higher end indoor townhomes, if you call them, that actually have TVs in them. And you can see there on the southeastern corner of the building, that's actually a kind of an interesting area. I use the term not in a bad way, they're guillotine doors. So they're actually ingress, egress for the animals to come out to their individual runs outdoors. So that's kind of a heightened package that you can have for your animals as well, so they can kind of come in and out as they please without interfering with any other animals. So obviously the humans let them out, they don't let themselves out. But yeah, it's kind of a cool little area. And those areas that are in dark too are actually turf. So the animals actually have an area, and every time the animals go outside and then come back in, the area is completely cleaned of waste. So there's nothing that stays out there more than each time the animals go outside.
Thank you so much.
Yep, you're welcome.
Anything else, anyone?
Just in making the motion, it'll be for both, correct?
No, you gotta do one at a time.
Individually, okay.
Correct, one at a time. Yeah.
Okay. And then one more clarification on that. For the recommended conditions, if I were to read, would I read that for the variance of use or?
I think all three would apply for the use, and then since the first condition applies to use, you would only need number 2 and 3 for the second one. Would be my read on it. I don't know what staff. But as to you see them.
Down here, underneath department comments.
The what?
On the.
The conditions are bottom of page 3 begins.
Yeah. So I'd read those for just the variance of use, or?
No, we'll need conditions to both, but let's just deal with the use element first. So I'll entertain a motion on 2204 VU07, and I would suggest that we would do all 3 conditions.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I will make a motion of approval for 2204-VU-07, 17502 Cary Road, with the following recommended conditions for approval. Number one, the high-intensity retail use shall only allow a pet-oriented business use as a permitted use. Number two, that the variances shall only be applicable to the property if it is developed in substantial compliance with the site plan, elevations, and renderings, Exhibit 4, Exhibit 6, as determined by the Director of the Westfield Department of Community Development. And number three, that the petitioner in acknowledgement of the variance with the Hamilton County Recorder's Office and returns a copy of the recorder instrument to the Community Development Department.
I second that.
No, I'm giving it to you. Motion by Victor, seconded by Brian to approve 2204 VU07, subject to the three recommended conditions by staff. Dan, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Morales?
Yes.
Mr. Bowler?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Ms. Fortier?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And I'll make a motion to adopt staff's findings of fact for the approval of 2204 VU07.
I second that.
Motion by myself, seconded by Jeff to adopt staff's findings of fact for the approval of 2204 VU07. Dan, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Morales?
Yes.
Mr. Bowler?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Ms. Fortier?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Now let's move on to the development standards. Pretty straightforward, I think, with the offsets. This building of this size, I think the 2 foot is adequate. It's a really attractive building, and the intention of the statute of the UDO with respect to those offsets are met by this building, even though they may not have the same
I just had
size requirement. Anything?
Sorry, just one quick question in regards to this rendering. Will your guys' logo be in that blank spot right there?
Yes, that's correct. We've left it off since there's typically a separate approval on signage versus building, so that's why we left it off.
Anything else? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Why are you all looking at me? How many do I read this time? Just the bottom two?
I'd say the bottom 2, right,
Okay.
of the conditions.
Yeah, the first one wasn't.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make a motion of approval for 2204-VS-13, 17502 Cary Road, with the 2 following recommended conditions. That the variance shall only be applicable to the property if it is developed in substantial compliance with the site plan, elevations, and renderings, Exhibit 4, Exhibit 6, as determined by the Director of the Westfield Department of Community Development, and that the petitioner records an acknowledgement of variance with the Hamilton County Recorder's Office and returns a copy of the recorded instrument to the Community Development Department.
I'll second it.
Motion by Victor, seconded by Jeff to approve 2204 VS13, subject to the 2 staff recommended conditions. Dane, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Morales?
Yes.
Mr. Bowler?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Ms. Fortier?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, and I'll make a motion to adopt staff's findings of fact for the approval of 2204 VS13.
Second.
Motion by myself, seconded by Ms. Fortier to adopt staff's findings of fact for the approval of 2204 VS13. Dan, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Morales?
Yes.
Mr. Bowler?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
And Ms. Fortier?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Matter
Thank you.
approved.
We appreciate your time and consideration. Also, we appreciate Ryan's help in getting us through this process. Very helpful. Thank you.
Appreciate you, and I just want to make one last plug with you coming to our community. Would love to have you involved with both Eggpalooza and Barktoberfest, all right? Always looking for vendors.
Barktoberfest is awesome. Yes.
Added as conditions of approval.
You had your chance.
I
You
should
put it
have.
in.
Gosh, dang it.
I'm going to recommend not doing that.
Final item on the agenda has an element to it. We have 2 people who will be, Jeff and Victor will be recusing themselves, so let the record show that those 2 are recusing themselves from this matter, 2204 VU06, 1031 East 169th Street, Westfield Lions Club is the petitioner, seeking variance of use to permit a civic club on 1.3 acres in enclosed industrial. And joining us at on the board for this petition, Bob Horke is the alternate appointed by the mayor So we will still have 4 voting members here. And thank you, Bob, for participating tonight. And the other 2, get out of here. Can they stay seated here? We don't have to
Yeah,
kick them out?
they can stay seated, they just can't vote.
Ah.
Or say anything.
They can't participate in any kind of communication at
Turn
all.
off their mics.
It's not just voting.
All right. Dane, this is your case, I believe.
Evening, members of the board. For the record, Dane Crabtree with the Community Development Department. The item before you this evening is a variance of use request to permit a civic club, specifically the Lions Club, at 1031 East 169th Street, a 1.3 acre enclosed industrial zone parcel. If the board is inclined to approve the variance, conditions limiting the civic club use to the supplemented project narrative and limiting the use to the southernmost of the 2 buildings on the property, among others, have been suggested. This item has been properly noticed and advertised. The department has received no comments. Dave Sobzak and Berger are both present this evening if the board has questions, although neither plans to make a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. In the absence of a petitioner's presentation, I'll open the public hearing at 8:26. Any cards, Rachel?
No cards.
Okay.
I will say we did receive a electronic email. I don't know whether it was intentional to be a public comment or not, so I'll go ahead and read it.
Okay.
It says, hello, I noticed there was not a mention of this being in a TIF/EDA. We do have a policy against nonprofits and EDAs without a pilot. Not sure issue here, but just wanted to make sure we are not going against any city policy. I can say that I did GIS map where TIF districts lie, and according to those resources, this is not within a TIF district.
So no issue with whomever sent that?
Not per the resources that I used in my research, which would be the city GIS map, which I hope will be correct.
Okay. Give it a minute or so here. Anything coming in?
No additional communication.
Great, I'll close the public hearing at 8:28. And let's see, Dave or one of JR, one of you want to come up for a question or two? It won't be too tough.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Dave Subzak, member of the Westfield Lions Club. My home address, I'll give you my business address, 216 Jersey Street, Westfield, Indiana. Open for questions.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, the staff has recommended 4 conditions for this approval, should it be granted. So I wanted to make sure you guys had had the opportunity to see those and are agreeable to those, or at least
Yes.
aware of them.
Yes.
Okay. The main thing being that it be, that any approval would be conditioned upon substantial compliance with your narrative statement and the limitations of which building you would operate out of, and any expansion limitations. So as long as you're agreeable to all that, I just want to make sure we would do that, because anything we would do would be tied to those.
Right, we are.
Okay. Any questions from anyone?
I don't have any questions, but since Victor can't say too much, then I think this is a great move for Westfield, and I'm so glad you guys found a new home.
Well, thanks. We were where we were since 1959, and we've been looking pretty hard for about the last 7 years since Grand Junction Park's been in the works. And we came across JR's building, and it's about the same size as where we're at footprint-wise now, but with the property, it's a little bit nicer. Of course, and we've got a couple of ideas if we do expand, either to the south or to the east there. So, but I think it'll be nice. You know, we just need a home. Now we may have one. So, back to pancake breakfast and fish fries again. And the building to the north, which is currently occupied by State Farm, is, we've got a little agreement with him to stay. He's a great tenant. I think he's been with JR for about 13 years, so.
Any other questions, concerns? Bob? down
I
at
think
the
it's
end?
good that you're no longer having to be nomads. You found a home. Certainly appreciate the good work that Lions do here and across the country. My first impression when I looked at this, when I knew I was going to be here tonight, was that this is a very lucky find. And I gather from what I've heard that the expectation is that it will be for kind of a long haul, but I was kind of thinking there might be someplace in our community that could be a better location for the kinds of gatherings that occur. You really are focused on this for the, maybe not the length of duration that you were in the previous building, but this is not a stopover while you look for something with
No,
maybe a
I don't
little
think
more central location or something with better
It's-
egress and visibility?
No, not necessarily. Westfield, we were lucky because back in the day, there was nothing there. That all grew up. The real estate's a little too pricey now for the Lions Club to stay downtown, so.
Real estate is very pricey, but we have more than just downtown that
Yeah.
I think could be
But it's a pretty good
potential
spot.
options.
You know, the access is not that hard, you know, to get to off of 169th Street there, so it's still be relatively visible, and it's a short hop over to the Modon, so.
When you would have the kinds of events that you alluded to, the fish fries or the whatever, if you haven't had them in a while, so maybe there's not good historical data, but what would perhaps be the projections for how many people would come and what duration? So thinking of all the ins and outs on 169th
Yeah, for
Street from a single egress.
For a, I don't know, gosh, we'd probably, how many meals we serve a night? It's a fish fry. Yeah, a couple hundred probably, but it's in and out quick, and we, not perfected a to-go service, but we could do something like that here as well with the parking lot, so. You know, people could just place orders, walk up to the tent, grab it, and keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, the use of what would be the southern portion of our building where we would meet, we'd set it up, just put tables in there so people can kind of come and go. So it's a nice little community event too. So usually the first Friday and Saturday after Labor Day.
Okay, and more, I guess, for staff, there's no concern that was obviously identified or it would have been in the report?
As far as traffic circulation and flow, yeah, no, none was provided.
Okay.
If it were more of like a Monday through Friday, day in, day out type thing, I think it would have been.
The club, our normal club meetings are twice on first and third Thursdays. The first one is a business meeting. Nope, I got that wrong. First one's a social meeting, second one's a business meeting. And we generally get maybe 30 people for each of those.
And those first thing in the morning, evening?
No, they're in the evening.
They're in the evening. So non-business hours.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you for consideration.
Anyone else? If there's nothing else, I will entertain, let's see, yeah, we did the public hearing, didn't we?
Yes.
Okay.
There was no public to hear.
I'll make the motion to approve 2204 VU 06 at 1031 East 169th Street with the following conditions for approval. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. First one, the Civic Club use shall operate in substantial compliance with the narrative statement provided in Exhibit 3 as determined by the Director of the Community Development Department. Number 2, the Civic Club shall only be permitted to operate out of the southernmost building as shown on the site plan in Exhibit 4. Number 3, the Civic Club shall be permitted to make expansions to the southernmost building without additional variances. provided said expansions are completed in substantial compliance with the site plan in Exhibit 4 and are not out of character with the surrounding development. And lastly, number 4, that the petitioner shall record an acknowledgement of this approval with the Hamilton County Recorder's Office and return a copy of the recorded instruments to the Community Development Department.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Fortier, seconded by Mr. Morales to approve 2204VU06, subject to the four stated staff conditions. Dane, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Mr. Horke?
Yes.
Ms. Fortier?
Yes.
Mr. Morales?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, and I'll make a motion to adopt staff's findings of fact for the approval of 2204VU06.
I'll second.
Motion by myself, seconded by Ms. Fortier to adopt staff's findings of fact for the approval of 2204VU06. Dane, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Mr. Horke?
Yes.
Ms. Fortier?
Yes.
Mr. Morales?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. It's approved.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you.
And with that said, we have Victor has re-entered the festivities and can give any report of, as Plan Commission liaison.
Oh, joy, always relying on me, eh? It actually was killing me. You know how much I like to talk. All right, so my planning commission update. My bad. As far as the consent agenda, we approved a new Goodwill that will be next to the Goddard School, between the Goddard School and Meyer on 32. That'll be our third Goodwill in the city. So just interesting how that all will play out. As far as public hearing items, we did not have any items of business, so public hearing items. The first was the Osborne Trails PUD Amendment 5. This is for Phase 3 on Horton Road. The number of lots got reduced from 130 to either it's debatable 107 or 108 single-family lots. Initially, this area was approved for 170 townhomes, so much improvement there. It's 44 acres, and it's again, continuation of Osborne Trails being 55-plus community. And majority of the discussion revolved around what amenities will be provided for this additional section. Then the last item we had was a amendment for Grand Park Village PUD. This would be on the corner of Grand Park Boulevard and Wheeler Road, right next to the roundabout. It's about 12 acres. It'd be 10 apartment buildings that would house about 20 to 24 units per. And again, this was a hefty discussion of concerns revolving around parking, use, I mean, just about anything, and really comparing it to what was first approved several years ago, and if this is the best use for this land. So that's it.
Thank you. Staff, anything for the Community Development Department?
Yeah, I did receive an email just now from Sam with our IT department. It said, sorry for any issues. We are implementing a brand new system that we are working out the kinks. We should have everything ironed out in the next few days. So FYI.
Seemed to get a little better after those first two speakers, for whatever reason.
Other than that, no further questions, comments, whatever.
You got something on
It's 8:30.
next month's agenda? We got stuff for next month?
Yes, we will have a meeting next month.
Very good. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
And I will second the motion. Motion by Ms. Fortier, seconded by myself to adjourn. All those in favor, voice vote indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We are adjourned at 8:40.
Have a great evening, everybody.